Fighter! I'm going to go through the player's handbook one by one in each class and share either a funny story or my thoughts about the class in general, maybe a little bit of both, and that's what we're ready for right now. Okay, fighters are one of the most fun and one of the simplest, well, they can be one of the simplest characters to play. And that also, because of their simplicity, gives them the most fun on a certain level, because you can give them the most color in their personality if you want. Fighters basically are easy to play because the skills and so forth that you have are very straightforward. I mean, you hit stuff with your weapons. How simple can you get? I mean, even if you play an Eldritch Knight, which gives you some access to spells, or a Battle Master, which is cool because you get maneuvers, and the other fighters can be fun as well. The reality is, as a fighter, you're primarily going to be either the meat shield, the tank up front, or you're going to try to be a damage dealer. You're going to try to be a striker, a DPSer, whatever you want to call it. You're going to try to do tons of damage, which fighters are great at, let me tell you. That being said, that's just your role. That's just what you do. But the cool thing about fighters is, I mean, you can go to any culture, I mean human culture, any culture that we've had. There's great examples of great fighters. There's so many options. There's so many different ways that you can color and flavor and texture the fighter that you play, that there's almost an, like I said, for some of the other classes we're talking about here, there's almost an endless way that you can represent a fighter in your game. It doesn't have to be white bread, boring, stale toast. It does not have to be like that. It can be very colorful. It does not have to be vanilla. It can be very complex. That's up to you. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, you get the character I have mentioned in the introduction to this. I talked about some super silly, oh my gosh, I can't even believe I'm telling you this story. Way back in high school, which was many years ago in my life, well, we had this character that was freaking hysterical. He was a fighter, and his name was Joe. Yes, friends, that's how creative we were. My friends and I had some... Well, I'm not even going to include myself in that. Some of my friends had ridiculous names for their characters. I always tried to be colorful and interesting and creative, and my names probably sucked on some level too. However, Joe the Fighter. So let me tell you about Joe. Joe was dumb as a brick, and he was fun. He was actually, we didn't do tons of role playing back in the day. It was very much like dungeon crawl, hack and slash, like find the treasure, figure out the puzzle, move on to the next thing. And that's what we liked. That's what we loved. It was a little bit of tactics, lots of gameplay in the sense of combat. We loved combat, and we did do like puzzles and challenges and that kind of thing. There was some adventure in the sense of like exploration and figuring things out, but for the most part it was just young guys having fun. We're teenage guys and we were just goofballs. Well, Joe, he ended up with a sword of sharpness, and in one of these like monster dungeon crawls that we were in, somebody had the misfortune of putting on a cursed ring. Swords of Sharpness. Let me tell you about the Sword of Sharpness, at least back in 2nd edition. A Sword of Sharpness, if you rolled a critical hit, would sever the limb of your opponent. Wow, that's intense. Okay, so like a Vorpal sword will cut somebody's head clean off. That's a Vorpal sword. Well, a Sword of Sharpness back in the day, you had the potential of like severing limbs, like cutting somebody's leg or foot or arm or hand off. Well, guess what? We came up with the great ideas. Like, we got a curse ring. We don't have any way to remove curse. What are we going to do about it? And Joe's like, I can handle that. Can you imagine? So we're like, all right, put your finger there. This is going to hurt, but don't worry, we'll heal you. I mean, oh my God, the insanity of it. So yeah, as an adult, I can't... You know what, as an adult, I have to be fair. I might come up with the same plan. There's truth in that. Anyway, as teenagers, you can imagine, I I'm gonna see my friend who played this character, and believe me, we will talk about Joe. 30 years later, or whatever it is, we will be discussing Joe the Fighter, I am sure. So I encourage you to have those kind of stories, to make those kind of stories, because it's entirely up to you no matter what class you're playing. Tell me all about your favorite fighter in the comments on this video. Keep rolling 20s until I see you at a table someday, and remember, it's your game. Play your way.